Hi, folks. This is Dalton the Authenticator, coming at you strangely Anglantine list. And if my calculations are correct, now is the moment when you're considering, wait, this is a movie about cannibalistic foodies getting rid of people. Did you do the obvious thing, Dalton? And the answer is no. No, I did not do the obviously Hannibal Lecterian thing and get rid of Anglantine. Mostly because I wouldn't know what to do with him once I did to do such a thing. But that's neither here nor there. What had happened was, Eglantine and I were planning on doing our usual 20 minutes non spoiler, about 40 minutes spoiler review for the menu. But I was talking to Eglantine earlier today, and he said he hadn't seen it. So I said, well, then, give me the permissions. I have a lot to say about this movie, for it is bad and needs to be ranted about. And Eglantine said, no, we'll just do one of each. And then he gave me the channel permissions anyway, and here we are. So then, the menu. As the title suggests, it left me wanting to say, check please, because he's not good. Um, I guess to begin with, we should get into sort of the backstory of why this movie pisses me off, for it pisses me off. Um, to start with, I think I was like 99.9% of the people who wanted to see this movie, in the sense that I saw the trailer and went, oh, hey, it's Most Dangerous Game, or Wicker Man, or The Hunt, or The Purge, but with food porn, essentially. High class, you know, tutti fruity food porn. And that in and of itself would have been a decent sell. You take the Most Dangerous Game, you add a little bit of Hannibal, either the TV show or the movie franchise, you add a little bit of The Hunt, a little bit of The Purge, and Bob's Your Uncle, we're off to the races, maybe even a little bit of Ready or Not. But unfortunately, because this movie was made by pretentious hipsters, this movie knew that it was marketing itself like that. It knew that that's what you would want as an audience member, or at least if you're like me and you saw the trailer and thought that thought process or something similar to it. And it decided it was going to just be D, none of the above. Because instead of being the B horror comedy schlock with, high class food porn that every fiber of the trailer was indicating it would be, and every fiber of, you know, anyone who's a fan of this genre would have thought it would have been, it's going to take the worst aspects of movies like Shape of Water and Get Out and those sorts of movies that take what should have been a very easy layup for this sort of B horror comedy genre and turn it into an excuse for commentary and satire. And here's the thing. While it does at least attempt to on the surface play the we're satirizing um we're satirizing like the restaurateur industry slash the cuisine industry and or like food critics and so on, and we're going to use like a B horror movie in order to tell it, sort of thing. It does that on the surface, but here's the other thing. It's not as sincere as something like Hannibal, either the movie or the show franchise, and it's not as good at dark humor as that franchise. It's not even as good at like food related dark humor as the movie A Cook, A Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover by Peter Greenaway back in the 80s. And as far as like commentary movies go, it's not as good as something like Shape of Water. It's not as good as something like Get Out. It basically removes all of the enjoyable aspects of a movie like Get Out or Shape of Water and just keeps the annoying commentary parts that are going to go over the head of the people it's targeted at anyway, because they're all self congratulatory hipsters. Anyway, point being, if you were like me, you were expecting this to basically be Most Dangerous Game Culinary Edition or The Purge Culinary Edition. And instead, what we're getting is yet another example of we can't just sincerely advocate this premise. We can't have a character that's charming and charismatic be the lead and engage in essentially hyper stylized food porn and or horror comedy. We have to over intellectualize and usually pseudo intellectualize it to hell and back. And unfortunately, in order to get into the ins and outs of the hows and whys of that, I'm gonna have to deliver spoilers. But I will start with the basic overall premise, which is arguably semi-spoilery, but it's literally just giving context to shit you saw in the trailer, so you shouldn't be too heavily spoiled. Basically, Ray Fiennes of Voldemort and Red Dragon fame is playing a Wolfgang Puck or Gordon Ramsay-esque Michelin star having upscale chef who has a resort on an island where he solely cooks and you have to be invited to get into. And he also has a vendetta against a bunch of people. So he invites the people who he has a vendetta against to this island in order to slowly but surely kill them and serve their stylized remains to each other. And meanwhile, Anya Taylor-Joy is kind of playing a stealth heroine role where she is basically kind of broad strokes playing the same role as she was in Split, i.e. a seemingly ordinary person with a slightly darker or more traumatized past than her demeanor would give you at first blush, who bonds with the villain of the piece over a traumatic backstory element or so, and by virtue of both her uncharacteristic goodness and uncharacteristic intelligence, she's able to essentially get out of a murderous cannibalistic situation. It's one of those. If I had a dime for every time Anya Taylor-Joy played that particular character type, I would have 2 dimes. But it's odd that it happened twice, especially in a short number of years. Um, and and basically, the 10 or so people who this guy invites to his private culinary island circus thing are examples of things that the creators of this movie want to satirize and they do it poorly. Basically, this movie, rather than be the straightforward Most Dangerous Game meets Hannibal meets The Hunt meets The Purge that we all kind of were expecting from the trailer, the one that would have actually probably been good and would have been an easy sell for someone like me. It's basically dumping on the very concept of doing that. Example, if you are the type of person who goes for the kind of movie I just described, either for essentially food porn reasons or for genre liking reasons, this movie hates you. And I know this movie hates you because several of the characters in this movie are basically stand-ins for straw men of the audience. For example, there's a food blogger character whose whole purpose is to be the pretentious twat who talks incessantly about food while knowing nothing about food. And therefore, Ray Fiennes' chef character allows, quote unquote, him to make his own dish, knowing that it's going to be terrible, just to prove to the guy that for all of his hipstery opinions on food, he knows nothing about making food. Which this has a dual sort of FU function, which is one, that is a very, very obvious point of satire you have there. And two, a lot of foodies actually become foodies by way of some semblance of culinary education, whether it's through cookbooks, whether it's through Food Network, whether it's through classes they've taken or so on. So on the one hand, it's a very obvious point. On the other hand, it's a very facile point because it's hardly ever true. And this is a trend that continues throughout all of the various characters. You have the investor who basically gave Ray Fiennes his island restaurant thing, who Ray Fiennes hates cooking for, and yet has to because investor, and he and his wife basically die. Anya Taylor-Joy's character is the only character who doesn't fit the "we are literally strawmanning anyone who would want to see this movie" role, because she actually was hired by one of the people who was invited to this island to accompany him to this island, because he knows what Ray Fiennes is getting up to, or at least he heavily suspects what Ray Fiennes is getting up to. And therefore, he breaks it off with his girlfriend like a week ahead of this, hires a prostitute to pretend to be his girlfriend, and said prostitute is Anya Taylor-Joy's character. Small points ahead of this, or continuing along this, is... Oh, damn it, I completely lost it. This is not going well, not at all. Damn it. I should have practiced this ahead of time.